We have a guest in the studio. His name is Dr. John Akoten. He's the Director for Research, Planning and Quality Assurance at the Anti-Counterfeit Agency. Authority. He's here with us this morning to have all these conversations. Karibu sana, Daktari.
Thank you.
Karibu sana. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. We'll be talking about the work that the Anti-Counterfeit Authority does and what role you play in fighting counterfeits, and also just paint for us the picture of counterfeit in this country. It's big, isn't it?
Oh yes, it is.
It's a big issue. Yeah, this man here, Siti Muga, you look at him, he's making the studio bright this morning. Yellow, like the sun. Siti.
Yes.
Sasa.
Speak. That I may hear.
Siti Muga is dressed in a way today that completely takes the day, takes the cake. And you told us this is dressing from Papua New Guinea.
Yes.
This is how they dress.
Well, yes. A Papuan man, a copy man.
A copy man.
Yes.
A copy man is like the elder. He dresses like this, with the shirt and the hat. Hiyo kofia lakini nini, is it woolen?
I think so. We should ask Ndu. She knows more about these things than I do. What does it look like? This hat, is it woolen?
Well, one would have to touch it in order to establish.
So, bana, give us the day's proverb.
Yes, this is our final proverb from the country of Eritrea. A country rich in history. Really rich in history.
Yes.
Once upon a time, a kingdom is home to one of the oldest ports on the continent. Well, and the story goes on, okay? When the road is good, it is used a second time.
When the road
is good,
it is used
a second time.
Very good. Doctor, when you hear this proverb from Eritrea...
Well, I've never heard of that.
Now that you've heard it for the first time, whenever you hear a proverb, you always start imagining what exactly are they saying? What is the meaning of this proverb?
Yeah, sure.
What's your interpretation of it? When the road is good, it is used a second time.
Well, probably it means then that if something is good, probably you want to test it maybe a second time.
That is very good.
Yeah. Maybe you try the first time, then you feel like, I think it looks nice. Maybe let me have a second time, at least just to confirm. Whether maybe a suspicion in the first time is correct or not. Yeah.
When the road is good,
then you use it the second time.
It is used a second time. Like we say in Kenya, elewa medali. Elewa medali. Daktari, the Anti-Counterfeit Authority, it's a critical agency in the country. Just give us an introduction. People who have heard of Anti-Counterfeit Authority, they don't know what it does. What exactly is the mandate of the ACA?
Okay, thank you so much, Latif. Now, let me start by talking about the mandate of the Anti-Counterfeit Authority. We borrow our mandate from the Constitution of Kenya, 2010, especially if we look at Article 11, Sabbatical C, that talks about that the state is supposed to do three things. One, to promote, to protect, and even to support the intellectual property rights of the people of Kenya. Now, if you look at the other sabbaticals also, for example, Sabbatical 40, Article 40, Sabbatical 5, again, it talks about the issue of health and safety of consumers, that we have to protect the health and safety of consumers, because you find that counterfeit goods could also be substandard, could also be injurious, and therefore there's need for the government or the state to protect consumers in terms of health and safety. Then again, if you go down further, under Article 69, 1C, again it talks about issues of geographic indications, issues of intellectual property rights, and so on. That the government is also obligated also to safeguard those intellectual property rights. And then lastly, under Article 260, it says that intellectual property is also regarded as an asset, just like land, like buildings, like vehicles that could be having and so on. So it has really elevated the issue of intellectual property to a level where intellectual property is very, very important for economic development. So because of that, the government came up with an act of parliament, number 13 of 2008, that created the Anti-Counterfeit Authority. So the work of the Anti-Counterfeit Authority, as espoused in Section 5 of the Anti-Counterfeit Authority, is to combat counterfeiting. In this particular sense, we have our own enforcement officers who are actually given the mandate now to enforce the provision of the Anti-Counterfeit Act. Then the other one is to create public awareness on issues of counterfeiting, because we have to educate the public on issues of counterfeits. Because without public awareness, then it becomes very difficult for common mwananchi really to understand what is counterfeiting. How can they really participate in terms of reducing the inflow of counterfeit into the country. The third mandate is issues on training, where we devise and we come up with training programs to build the capacity of various agencies, whether it's government agencies, whether the private sector, and so on issues of counterfeiting. We've been able to train, we've been able to build the capacity of the private sector on what they need to do when it comes now to issues of counterfeiting. We also coordinate both at the national level, regional level, and even international level on issues of counterfeiting. The other mandate that we do is we also advise the cabinet secretary on issues of where we are in terms of fighting counterfeiting, and lastly, of course, we conduct research on issues of counterfeiting. So basically, those are the mandates of the Anti-Counterfeit Authority. And we established sometime in 2010 through an act of parliament that was crafted sometime in 2008, but then it was ascended in 2009.
What are the areas over which you have jurisdiction in terms of now products or services then that you would then look out for within society, within the country that you now see we're sending out to make sure that all of these things are up to scratch? What areas of jurisdiction do you control?
Well, thank you so much, Ndo. Basically, we control everything. Whatever kind of goods. What we're talking about, fast-moving consumer goods, those are the jurisdictions that we cover. Of course, we also cover goods within the country, because if you look at issues of intellectual property, they are territorial in nature. So the mandate of ACA is basically to ensure that anything that comes into the country is actually prohibited. So we do our own investigation within the country. Anything that's coming from, let's say, from another country, whether we're talking about Uganda or Tanzania, we also ensure that anything that does not pass through the country, also to these other countries, actually stop. Because if you look at Section 22 of the Anti-Counterfeit Authority, it gives us powers to ensure that we're able to investigate, carry out inspections on suspected counterfeit goods that are passing through the country. For example, issues of transiting of counterfeit goods, let's say, to our neighboring countries, whether you're talking about Tanzania or even Uganda or even Southern Sudan, those goods actually are prohibited. So the mandate of ACA is to ensure that Kenya is not used as a conduit through which counterfeit goods are shipped to other countries.
That means you have inspectors.
Yes, we do have inspectors. These are appointed inspectors by the board of the Anti-Counterfeit Authority, and they have full police powers. So that means that they can stop any vehicle, they can enter into any building, they can even stop even an aircraft if they suspect that it's carrying counterfeit goods. They can they can inspect it, and sometimes they can even carry out even inspections even without a warrant of arrest. But in most cases, of course, we go to court to get a warrant. So basically, we have all those kind of powers. And initially, even before the year 2019, we used also to have also prosecutorial powers. So we could investigate, and then some members of the staff can prosecute those matters in the court of law. Yes.
But now who does the prosecution?
ODPP.
Only?
Yes.
Are you the only ones who have the mandate of inspections to ascertain counterfeits?
No, we are not the only one, because if you look at Section 22 of the Anti-Counterfeit Act, we also have what's called designated inspectors. So designated inspectors, these are inspectors from other government agencies For example, the Kenya Bureau of Standards, we have weights and measures, we have the Kenya Revenue Authority, we have the National Police Service, and so on. So all these other government agencies or officers, they are also inspectors for the purpose of enforcing the provision of the Anti-Counterfeit Act. So, for example, now if you look at, at the border points, we have Kenya Revenue Authority, we have the Kenya Bureau of Standards, and so on. So we have these government agencies, including even the Port Health. So they wear a second hat where even as they implement their own mandate, they also implement issues of counterfeiting. So if they come across counterfeit goods, they can actually take action, seize them, and then liaise with ACA.
How do you identify counterfeit?
Identification of counterfeit, of course, it's not easy. It's difficult. We rely on the intellectual property right owner. When you're talking about intellectual property, what is intellectual property? First of all, we have to define what it is. Intellectual property basically is the creation of the mind. Yeah. And it comes in different forms. For example, you can have a trademark. If you have, let's say, a shirt, let's say Muga shirt, if it has a label on it, that's a trademark.
Yes.
And then maybe the way the clothes has been designed and so on. There could be issues of patent in it. Yeah, there could be a patent in it. There could be, and then the design, there's also what's called the industrial design. So now, if this shirt, let's say, gets lost, for example, probably he washed it and then placed it maybe out there to dry. And then for some reason, somebody
he came back and didn't find it there.
Then who is the person who is able to identify it? Is it the police officer or is it...
it's the owner.
It's the owner. Yeah. So Muga is the one actually who is able to identify it.
Yeah.
So the same thing also applies also to intellectual property. For example, if it's Coca-Cola, whatever it is, if it is maybe tea leaves and so on. So it's the company, the manufacturer, who is able to identify it. So what they do is that they can lay a complaint with ACA where they come to us and say, we suspect shop A, B, or C is actually engaging in counterfeiting. And the reasons are 1, 2, 3. Maybe the packaging or maybe the name and so on. So there's kind of features that they're able to identify and say, no, this particular product is not mine. Yeah, it was not manufactured by us. It was manufactured by somebody else. Basically, they're coming up with a product to confuse the consumers to buy it. So then with that information, then bring it to us and then be able to investigate and carry out inspections. Now, we also get trained also by these intellectual property right owners because they also train us on how to identify counterfeit goods. For example, they tell us, our package looks like this. Maybe the name is supposed to be looking like this. For example, if we look at the mobile phones, for example, in terms of the characters, the names, and so on, their sizes and so on, and measurements. So they take us through that kind of training, so that our own inspectors, when they are going out there in the field, through their own suspicion, they can actually, once they come across suspected counterfeit goods, they can actually take action, seize the goods, inform the owner to come and authenticate whether those goods are actually counterfeit or not. It's a form that they have to fill in, and then, of course, the matter goes to court. Another way is that you can also get intelligence, let's say, from consumers. Maybe some of us probably have bought something and you suspect it could be counterfeit goods. Then you bring that information to us. Then based on the information of the training that we've been able to go through, which is called product knowledge training, then if you suspect this could be counterfeit goods, then again, we go ahead and seize it. So basically, in a nutshell, is that identifying a counterfeit good is not easy. We really depend a lot, of course, on the manufacturers because, again, when these products, manufacturers also keep on, changing, the face value of the product and so on. You talked about that KTN is going to rebrand.
Yes.
So the current logo and the future logo probably will be different. So it's you actually who knows how your logo looks like. Yeah. And if there's any counterfeiting, it's you actually will be able to know that there's somebody else who is actually counterfeiting our logo and so on. So that information is the one that the intellectual property right holders are the ones now building the capacity of ACA inspectors through kind of training, so they'll be able now to help them also to identify these counterfeit goods. Of course, there's also technology that manufacturers are also using. For example, QR code and so on, which they use now to help also consumers to identify counterfeit goods.
If you're talking about manufacturing of goods, you are saying someone manufactures a certain item. Now, if someone is going to counterfeit it, it means they're also manufacturing something, aren't they?
Yeah, they could be manufacturing or they could be doing repackaging.
Right.
Yeah.
Repackaging. How then do you determine that when someone is manufacturing, that what they're manufacturing is actually authentic? That it isn't something that someone else has done, and that now they are the ones who are now presenting it as their own?
Well,
I'll give you an example of what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't have evidence to support what I'm about to say, but I have heard oftentimes that there are people who import sugar into this country, not the funny sugar which is contaminated, the one which is in the paper, but sugar which actually fit for human consumption.
Yeah.
Then they take it to some factory that is licensed as a factory, and they repackage it using the logo, the bags,
Those bags
Of known brand.
of the known brand. Now, would that be counterfeit?
Definitely it's counterfeit because the sugar belongs to a particular company. For example, it was brought maybe from outside the country and so on, and then you come in and repackage it. That is wrong, because essentially when the product is coming in, for example, it is coming in under a different particular name.
Yes.
And then the moment it arrives at the port of Mombasa, then somebody repackages it.
Yes.
That's totally wrong, because essentially you are supposed to now to sell it
As a product from that factory.
As a product from coming from outside.
Yes.
Oh.
So that's counterfeiting. Yeah.
Okay. So then what would be the difference, for example, if you were selling a Rolex watch? Because that's a known brand, right?
Yeah, sure.
And a watch comes in and it is Bolex, which we've seen many times. You have products that mimic the name, right? That mimic a name of a known brand, but it is a shoe, or it is a watch, or it is a bag, or whatever. Are those considered to be counterfeit? Because we see them all over the place, and if they are, then why are they not mopped up and tossed out?
Well, you need to look at the same sector, for example. If it is shoes, and you have a name, let's say, you're giving you're talking about, let's say, a watch, a Rolex watch.
Usually it's something that is
It's
expensive.
close to the name,
Yes.
Yeah, if it is close to the name, but then it's a different product, then you can't really bring in the issue of confusion. Because again, with the issue of IP is an issue of confusion. But you are confusing the consumer to think that what they are buying actually is the real thing. Yeah, it's the real thing. For example, now you're buying Rolex.
Yeah.
It's a watch.
Yes.
But then if you have a bag that is written Rolex, then that cannot
Rolex,
bring in.
And Rolex, the watch company, does not make bags.
It cannot bring any confusion. But if it is the similar product, that's where now it can bring confusion. For example, now you have a watch, a Rolex watch, then somebody else comes up with another watch which they are calling maybe Rolex. That's where now counterfeiting comes in.
You know what is strange?
Because the idea of counterfeiting is basically to create that kind of confusion.
And yet, one sees very many of these goods being sold.
Yeah, everywhere.
In the open.
Everywhere.
It's not as though someone is hiding in a corner or selling them. So is it that it is difficult that one doesn't have the wherewithal to man and monitor all these things? Or is it that sometimes you figure, no one has complained, so why should we bother ourselves? Why is it?
Well, you see, as I mentioned earlier, is that one, you need to have a complainant for ACA to move forward. Because, when you take a matter, let's say, to court, there's the issue that you have to prove that this product is counterfeit. For example, if it is water, the one that you're taking,
yes,
and you complain, let's say, of counterfeit of this particular water, and we take up the matter, let's say, to court, we need now the owner, the maker of that particular product, to come and say, this water is not mine because of 1, 2, 3. If you don't have a complainant, then actually the case will just collapse.
Can you
It's
flag,
very difficult, because now even the court will not be able to make a decision whether that product is counterfeit or not.
But can you flag, Dr. Harry? Can you flag? So, for example, a certain brand, right? There's a shoe brand. Assis is Kenyan tea.
Yes.
Okay. All the way from Kapchorwa, up Lenguruan, very nice done from Kiptagich Tea Factory. And then you start seeing another kind of product that is trying to mimic Assis. And from all your training and all your understanding, Assis has not come to you, but you know very well, this thing, the way it's looking, it's actually, this is somebody who's trying to mimic Assis. Can you flag Assis and tell Assis, we have found something in the market?
Yeah, definitely we do that. We do that. We flag it out, as I mentioned earlier, based on the training that we have received. Once now we flag it out that it's a counterfeit good, we seize it. then we inform ASIS that we went to this particular shop, we came up across your tea leaves, and we suspect it's counterfeit goods. Can you come and confirm? Can you come and confirm?
Okay.
So the only problem now is that if they fail to come and confirm, and even do what's called they do a report, basically comparing what has been seized and their own original product, then that case is likely to fail in a
So you cannot even take action?
No, we take action, yes. We take action. We can take the matter to court. Of course, we call them to come and lay a complaint with us, and even provide a statement, even in a court of law. But sooner, if they fail to come, maybe for some reason, that case is likely to fail. Yeah.
So what is the difference between...
Because if you look at intellectual property right, Latif, is that it's a private property right. So you as the owner needs now to make a complaint. Because if you don't make a complaint, for example, I was giving an example of
Muga's shirt.
Yeah, if it gets lost and it doesn't go to the police, what do you expect the police to do? They will not do anything. So you need to have a complainant.
Okay.
Yeah, because without a complainant, it becomes really a big challenge.
What is the difference between counterfeit and fake?
Now, when you talk about fake is just is just a generic name for products probably that could be counterfeit, it could even be substandard, could be anything. It's kind of like a bigger name for goods that do not meet certain legal requirements. So if you're talking about counterfeiting, I mentioned that counterfeiting has to do with something which is called intellectual property rights. But when you're talking about substandard it's basically about standard. Sub means, of course, is below standard. So there's a minimum standard that every country has to come up with. For example, the Kenya Bureau of Standard, they come up with a particular standard. If it is a mic like this one, maybe water and so on. There are certain things that they go for, whether you're talking about impurities and so on and so on. So there's a minimum level of impurity that can be allowable. If you're talking about even food and so on, for example, even aflatoxin, there's the minimum amount that is allowed within the product for it to be to meet the minimum standard. So if it goes beyond that, then it's considered a substandard. So there's a difference between substandard and counterfeit. So all counterfeit goods may not necessarily be substandard, and not all substandard goods are counterfeit.
So let me give an example.
Yeah.
We're looking at this as tea. Let's say someone steals an entire consignment of this tea, okay?
Yeah.
And they sell it as assist tea, but they stole it. Meaning assist have it on record that there's a consignment of tea that was heading from point A to B, and that truck was hijacked and their tea was stolen. Now, if that tea, because it'll have a batch number, it'll have all these details.
It is everything assist.
Everything is assist.
100%.
It's actually 100% assist.
Yeah.
Is it counterfeit?
No, that's not counterfeit.
It's stolen goods.
That's stolen. That's not counterfeit. You remember the issue about counterfeiting is that we are using the intellectual property right of the owner without their without their permission. Yes, but see, this is just a stolen good. It is genuine. It belongs to assist, but somebody else is selling, so the other person is not receiving the benefit. So the benefit is going to somebody else. So that can be regarded as an illicit business. For example, now if you fail maybe to pay taxes and so on, you have imported something and you are not paying the taxes, or you have underpaid it, that is a form of illicit trade.
Right.
But it may not necessarily be counterfeit.
Okay.
Dr. John Akoten is the Director in charge of Research, Planning and Quality Assurance at the Anti-Counterfeit Authority. He's here with us this morning to explain the battle against counterfeits in Kenya. And Dr. you just explained to us what counterfeits are, which is that thing that is basically being done by somebody unscrupulously to try to mimic a product, a genuine product, get into the market and selling it as this product. But of course, it will not meet the same exact standards and specifications of this. What attracts somebody to counterfeit?
Well, of course, there are a number of factors. For example, it could be the trademark. If it is a well-known trademark, consumers sometimes they want to buy those particular products. They want to be associated with that particular product. We did mention about, for example, if it is a mobile, let's say a mobile phone.
Yes.
Somebody wants to be associated, let's say, with the iPhone, probably 11 or 12 or 13, whatever it is. So if somebody was selling a counterfeit iPhone, you would find people maybe actually buying it. And actually, we did some research some time back and found out that the propensity for consumers to buy counterfeit goods actually increases with the level of education as well as also their income.
It increases.
It increases.
So
Up
the
to a certain
higher your
level,
education and higher your income,
yes,
the higher your chances of
buying counterfeit goods, and then reaches a particular point and then it comes down.
All right.
For example, now, I mean, if it was, let's look at probably water, a simple product like water. You get some water maybe from the ground, maybe runoff, and then you put it in a bottle, and then you want to sell it. So you find that actually very few people would buy it because they look at it and say, "Oh, I think this one is not really, it's not something that you can actually consume."
Impurities.
Yeah, it has impurities. You can see it. Now, as your level of income, of course, increases, and also your level of education. For example, like us, we are sitting here. Probably you are in Europe. Probably you have been traveling, and then you come across, let's say, a Rolex, watch. Probably that is costing maybe something like 7,000 shillings. I mean, you'll go for it because you want to be associated. You want to be associated with a particular class. So when you're wearing it, you want maybe to show to your friend that you have a Rolex. If it is a bag, maybe Gucci. Our sister here and probably would want to have that Gucci bag and maybe we'll place it on top of the table so at least everyone would want to see it. So you want to be associated maybe with a particular club because of a particular trademark that is well known. Yeah, so you find that there are a number of factors. Of course, the other factors could be maybe issues of price. Probably the price is cheaper, so you want to buy it. It's a trademark issue. Others probably just a classism, maybe because your colleagues are buying it, so you want also to be associated with it. But what we keep on telling people is that cheap is expensive. So you may go actually for a particular product which is cheap, but in the end actually becomes very, very expensive. Yes.
But what makes somebody want to counterfeit? This person who is creating this fake Gucci bag or this fake iPhone, why are they doing it?
Well, there are, of
why
course,
not just put your own brand?
The major reason basically is to make quick money, because people are in a competition. There are people who are already manufacturing products. There are others probably who want to venture into a particular business. So they're thinking, what kind of business can I start? And they realize that when they start out that particular company is that the issue about marketing and so on. Your product is still new.
Yeah.
People do not know even your product, how does it look like, maybe in terms of the quality, in terms of quite a number of other aspects. So it will take you a lot of money and a lot of time for you really to market that particular product. So the easiest way that people do, you come up with a particular product, then give it the name of, let's say, the name of the product of your neighbor.
Of your competitor.
Of your competitor. Why waste money to go and market your product if a particular product actually is selling? So all you need to do is just get the name of that particular product, just place it on your own product and start selling it, and then you have your own distribution channel.
Sure.
So that's how they make money quickly.
You're talking about counterfeit designer goods. Huh? Now, is it illegal to sell it, or is it also illegal to have it or to have bought it? According to our laws.
Yes and no. Yes, because if you're buying it and you're buying it for the purpose of selling, for the purpose of trade, then it's illegal.
Okay.
Yeah,
if you're buying it to consume it?
If you're buying it to consume it, let's say maybe probably you're just buying maybe one piece or two pieces, maybe just for your own consumption, then that's not illegal. For example, now you went to Europe, probably you came across maybe a Rolex or whatever it is, or a Gucci bag, you just bought one piece, and at the airport, let's say Jomo Kenyatta Airport, and we have our own officers there, and they realize that actually what you're buying is what you are actually bringing into the country is counterfeit, but it's only one piece, and you say this is not for my own personal use. That's not illegal.
But then you are encouraging illicit trade, are you not?
Well, when you're talking about trade, illicit trade, you're talking about buying and selling. You are actually in business.
Yes. You are in business.
That business is the one that actually is creating a lot of impact either to the economy and even to the manufacturer. But you see now when you're buying maybe just one particular product for your own consumption.
You could be innocent.
Yeah. Okay. You may not even be innocent. Probably it's counterfeit. But you're just purchasing it. Because if you look at the TRIPS agreement, it's a WTO TRIPS agreement. This is what's called de minimis principle. So de minimis principle.
Okay.
Is that if you are buying goods, small quantities of goods for your own personal use, then it cannot be classified as an offense. Yeah, so you go there, you buy a particular product, maybe one or two pieces. But of course, other countries, they also come up with their own laws that they're trying to discourage that. That you can't buy counterfeit goods. But you see, under the Kenyan law, the Counterfeit Act is that if you're buying probably one piece or two pieces, then that's not illegal.
Counterfeiters, say for instance, if you go to the Far East, if you look at some of these items we're talking about, and you will know it is fake. You don't need, you look at the item, this can't be the genuine thing. But on the other hand, if you go to a place like, say, the US, what they call knockoffs, it is very difficult to tell whether what you're buying is actually the genuine article or not. Now, as you say correctly, you are buying one piece, but it adds up. If there was no one to buy, even if it is one piece, then the manufacturers would not manufacture.
So you want the person who's bought even the one piece to be arrested?
Well, I am looking at the laws of this country, and I'm looking at how it is we treat people who handle stolen goods. That's where my mind is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because when it comes to stolen goods, you are arrested for possessing.
Yes, but you have stolen someone's property right. Because you are, in essence, what you've done is you are pretending that you have the right to actually sell something which you don't, because you are selling that genuine product. And yet it isn't. So the intellectual property has been stolen. So you are a thief. And the person who buys it is participating in that theft. That is my thinking.
Actually, Muga, you are right. Because essentially, if you look at it, it is illegal to buy counterfeit goods. Of course, under the current Anti-Counterfeit Act, is that if you're buying maybe one or two pieces, maybe for your own personal use, then it's not considered illegal. But I think, through intelligence, for example, if we discover that more and more people are buying these counterfeit goods, maybe for personal use, maybe 2 pieces, 3 pieces, and they're just coming in on daily basis, then of course that's when you just have to change the law. So it depends on the frequency, how many people are doing that, and how many cases are you able actually to come across on daily basis. We have all these border points. We are not just talking about Jomo Kenyatta Airport. We have also these other land borders like Busia and so on. So if our officers are able to come up with statistics to say that on a daily basis, these are the quantity of goods that are actually been entered into the country, which are counterfeit but for personal use, then that's when I will be able now even to change the law.
To change the law.
Yeah,
I don't want
remember
it
the
to be
law
changed.
keeps on. It has to be changed based on the people.
See, Daktari,
yes.
The overarching principle of the Anti-Counterfeit Authority is number one, primarily protect consumers.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So you work from that point.
Yeah.
You are trying to protect me from buying something that is counterfeited, substandard, and all of these things. I will not know, because I've not been trained like you by the owner of the copyright on how to identify the genuine product. So you cannot come and arrest me for something. How do I know that this is genuine, this is not? As long as I find something in the market, I assume that all the relevant agencies that are involved, whether it's KEBS, whether it's Anti-Counterfeit Authority, and all the others, have made sure that what's in the market is safe for my consumption.
Yeah, that's what.
So if we now get to a point where we are seeing a lot more counterfeiting is happening, then that's where we say, Dr. John Akoten, aekwe ndani.
Sure. So
that's what I'm saying.
Because you've not done your job of protecting me.
You see, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, that when you're buying counterfeit goods, for example, the seller, I mean you're buying.
Yes.
You could be buying it unknowingly. But you see, at the end, you'll be able to bring that information to us. That's intelligence that we use now to go and do the search. So we depend on the consumers to give us that intelligence, to give us that information. Then, of course, the manufacturers also come also to lay complaints with us.
Sure.
So that's how we work.
So essentially, you work from the end and then go towards the beginning, because you wait until something, essentially what you're saying is that you can't work until something has gone wrong. Until somebody has brought forth a complaint is when you say, okay, hold on, let's now go and check. But what I hear him saying, which kind of makes sense to me, and maybe what happens in other places, is that nothing will go on the shelf until, or anywhere for that matter, where anybody can buy or trade, that nothing will go into that place until it has been checked. So like when you go to KEBS, if you're manufacturing something today, in order for you to have it retailed, you must go to them and they give you the diamond mark or whatever mark. I don't know what stone that is now.
Yeah, the same mark.
Yeah, they give you the standardization mark, right? We know that there's some people who fake the mark and all of this, but essentially the process by which you can now get your goods up in the market has to pass through KEBS. Is it not possible, or wouldn't it be that now the two of you as Anti-Counterfeit and KEBS work together to guarantee that whatever is going out has been checked by both, so that me who goes to buy a product, unbeknownst to me whether it's counterfeit or not, I will then not get in trouble. Should I purchase an item, then we should be able to hold a body responsible for having let that item get on the shelf if it is counterfeit, and not me who buys it.
Actually, work together. First of all, we don't just sit in the office to wait for somebody to come and lay a complaint. I mentioned that there are 3 ways, actually 4 ways, in which we take action. This was called the suamoto, maybe just broadly. Suamoto is where we take action on our own motion. Now, that action can come in different forms. For example, the executive director, who is the CEO, can actually direct an inspector now to go and conduct an inspection if he thinks that there's suspicion that a particular shop is selling counterfeit goods. The other way is where a consumer like yourself, though probably you are walking along the street, you come across, maybe you wanted to buy something, then you suspect this must be counterfeit goods. Then now you come and lay a complaint with us and say, I bought this particular product, I suspect it's counterfeit goods, can you come and take action? So immediately we'll order that company now to refund you, and then now we take up the matter. The third way is what's called through the inspector's own motion, based on the product knowledge training that they have been able to receive through the intellectual property right owner. So they train you on how to identify counterfeit goods. So our inspectors will go to a particular place, for example, a shop. You are just walking, you enter into a supermarket, and that's what actually our inspectors have been doing. So they enter into a supermarket, they pretend that they are buying something, and if they suspect that some of the goods on the shelves are counterfeit goods, then they inform their own colleagues, and then they come and seize. And of course, we also inform the local police. So we seize those goods. Now, that's how we handle issues of complaints. Now, we have also come up with what's called an intellectual property right recordation. Now, we realize that most of the counterfeit goods in the country actually are imported. Actually, 80% of the counterfeit goods are imported. So it's only 20% that are locally manufactured. And basically,
they're
just simple
imported
things.
and they're mimicking...
Yeah, they're mimicking...
global brands.
Global brand. Because they have the capacity to manufacture products. And like our own Juakali sector here, they can manufacture, whatever they can manufacture is very, very simple. So what they do is the issue of repackaging. For example, you get these old bottles, then you fill it with water, or you take a packet like this one, then you place something else inside, then you sell it as ISIS and so on. So the simple kind of counterfeiting. But the one which are a bit complicated, for example, now you come up with a mic like this one. It's manufactured outside. So 80% of those counterfeit goods come from outside. So under the intellectual property right recordation, what we have done is that we are working with the Kenya Bureau of Standard to have this good checked at the point of exit. You remember under the KEBS PVOC system, this is the pre-verification of conformity assessment, which is done by quite a number of companies.
Before the goods leave their country.
Before the goods leave the country. That they're checked in terms of whether those goods meet the Kenyan standard before those goods are actually released to enter into the country. So in addition to that, we are working also with the Kenya Bureau of Standard that those PVOC agents, they can also check whether those products are counterfeit or not. So there are kind of features that, information that we collect from the manufacturers, we put it into our database, and then that information is the one that now can be used by those PVOC agents to ensure that those products meet the Kenyan standard, and they are also not counterfeit. So it's what's called the enriched PVOC program. So we're working with the Kenya Bureau of Standards to ensure that...
and where are the gaps? Because we still have a lot of goods that are in the country that are counterfeit.
I think probably the gaps, because now we are using the agents to do the work for us out there. Even Kenya Bureau of Standards, they are using the agents, so it's not their own officers. And basically what they do is that, because of the volume of goods that are coming to the country, remember that, for example, if you go to China, Shanghai, for example, there are millions and millions of containers which are being loaded on daily basis. So those officers probably just do some kind of random sampling. So they just go to a particular plot, maybe they look at this particular container, they check, they ensure if it is okay, and then maybe they give them the PVOC certificate, and then they release. And they know what I gather maybe from intelligence, is that once those officers leave, then they bring in other goods,
Then
and then
the exporter now swaps.
Yeah. So they add more goods into the container, or maybe another container, and so on. So you find that some of these goods actually can come through.
Right.
Then again, now if you look at our border points, now we have these panya routes. For example, the border between Kenya and Somalia is quite huge, and of course with Ethiopia and so on. So some of those goods actually they come through these other countries, and then now they enter our country through these border points. So that's how some of those goods actually come into the country.
Still, Dr.
Yeah.
So at the point of entry, let's say if it's at the port, of course, our ports, we have a ports authority, we have cabs, we have, I imagine even your officers are stationed at the port.
Sure.
So the panya routes, they're still going to use some roads to get into the country. What kind of surveillance do you have, working with the police as well, to see if a container is coming from the sides of the northern Kenya and it's carrying goods, and clearly we know that there's no factory anywhere in Mandera that makes watches, that makes shoes, and these are shoes coming in, you'd be able to impound it.
Yeah, we have those surveillance that's mainly done by Kenya Bureau of Standard, as well as also KRA at specific points.
Right.
For example, if it is Garissa, I think those goods which are coming from Somalia, they come through Garissa, and then from there they can go to Mombasa or come to Nairobi. So we have police officers there together with officers from Kenya Revenue Authority who actually check on those goods. But I think because of other factors, including even issues of corruption, for example, those goods actually can be let in to come into the country. So those are some of the challenges that sometimes we face.
So our loopholes are basically because there are some systemic issues. There are issues within the institutions that are mandated, either capacity or corruption or combination of all of those things that then allow things to come in. Because as I hear you say, is that on paper, things have been designed in such a way that you have multiple ways of detecting and stopping counterfeits from getting onto the shelf or getting into the consumer. From the point of export into the point of entry, into the point of through surveillance into the shops or through surveillance on the roads, but still billions of shillings worth of goods find their way onto the shelves. How can we address this?
Well, what we've done is that we have what's called a multi-agency framework that was established some time back in 2018. Through the ministry, of course, of our ministry, which is called the Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Industry. There was a Gazette notice that was put up there in 2018 that came up with an Illicit Trade Executive Forum that brought quite a number of other government agencies together. The Principal Secretary for Trade was the one chairing the aspect of creating public awareness. Because again, when we went out to seize goods, most of the people are saying, especially the manufacturers, were saying, especially these small traders, were saying, well, I bought these particular goods from, let's say, wholesaler A or B or C, and I was not even aware that they were counterfeit goods. So we had even to go out and train people and the traders and so on the differences between counterfeit, substandard goods, illicit trade, and so on. So we did that under the chairmanship of the Principal Secretary for Trade, and then. When we completed that session, because we started now with creating public awareness, then later on now we started now, enforcing the provisions of the various laws, whether you're talking about Kenya Bureau of Standards Act, Anti-Counterfeit Act, and so on, public health and so on. This was being coordinated from the Office of the President. So they brought in all these government agencies and they would go and conduct seizures together. Yeah, so they can go to a particular place. We have the Kenya Bureau of Standard, we have KRA, we have ACA, we have other government agencies. So we would go out there and, we seize. Yeah. And if you can remember, around 2017, 2018, up to 2019, we actually seized a lot of goods. I think it was around 3 billion, billion Kenya shillings worth of illicit goods. And half of that was even destroyed by the former president, just here in Athi River. Yep. And because of that, there was a lot of goods that were held at the port of Mombasa. In fact, actually, the port of Mombasa actually reached a point where there was a clog of containers. Yep. And even the small traders started raising a lot of issues. They were actually complaining. They even stopped us even doing raids even here in downtown Nairobi. We could not even go there because a number of these politicians came and said, no, ACA, don't go there. So I think because of that, being able to see a lot of impact because of this multi-agency.
So what you need
that multi-agency
is
being
more
able
of
to-
that.
Yes, more of that actually, multi-agency. So
And
if you have
then-
that kind of multi-agency, you'll be able to do a lot and reduce the amount of
And then
illicit
political
goods coming.
goodwill.
Yes.
I hear political goodwill as
Yes,
well, because
for
when
sure.
you conduct those raids
Yeah.
and you're actually doing your job,
Yeah.
you don't want to hear somebody coming to say unaharas
Yeah, sure.
wafanyabiashara wa Kenya nini. Dr. John, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Karibu tena.
Pleasure.
You need a lot of awareness on this.
Thank you.